Well, hey, Gundam Maniacs, welcome to another episode of Gundam Explained. For this episode, we're going to look at the technology behind the mobile suit. We get to see them in action. It looks really awesome. And with all this automation that's been coming out recently in the real world, it makes me curious at how much of that would be incorporated into future technology that's maybe just not talked about because it's just a natural part of things. But before we get started, if you haven't, please subscribe. And if you think it's cool that someone sits around and reads a Gundam wiki to you, give this video a like. And if you're interested in supporting the channel, there's links in the description for that, as well as our Discord, which we have a lot of fun at. But yeah, let's get started. All right, first things first. Look, watching the mobile suits battle is awesome. And in fact, when we watch the battle, the pilot in the cockpit is usually holding joysticks. We see some pedals. That doesn't really give us an understanding on how it's being piloted because we're seeing the mobile suit do a lot of things that a humanoid form would do, moving the arms, elbows, wrists, grabbing things. Even seeing the robot aim down the sights of a gun is pretty weird. But it's fun to get those background details, isn't it? Well, here is MS Pilot Manual. I'll have a link in the description for this. It's kind of not too clear to see, but we see this top console, front console, and then the foot pedal, reverse thrust and brake, and then the foot pedal for throttle. And then, yeah, a bunch of other side consoles where the joysticks are and everything. It's pretty cool, and it has a little key at the bottom so you can kind of get an idea of what you're looking at. Again, a link for this will be in the description. But, I mean, one thing, though, is I'm sure every mobile suit looks different, even if some of the basic functionality is there. Dogfight. Combat maneuvers require a multitude of tasks to be performed in the blink of an eye, and careless pilots may quickly deplete their fuel reserves. So this is where we would see there'd be some high technology being used to control these mobile suits, especially if there's multiple tasks that need to be done within the blink of an eye. I'm actually curious what automation is in place, but really let's look at the technology that the Universal Century universe describes as being used in a mobile suit. First of all, Contact Link. The Contact Link is an alternative means of short-range voice communication when mobile suits come into direct physical contact with each other or with other vehicles. Sound can be transmitted between them via vibrations in their outer armor. A mobile suit can reach out with its manipulator to establish the link, and these sound vibrations can also be relayed through wires, including the wire guns used by human workers. Unlike radio communications, conversations transmitted in this way are almost impossible to intercept. That could be due to a number of reasons. One, using this contact link, so yeah, they don't have communication intercepted, but also because of the use of the Maneuverability particle. The interference of the Maneuverability particle really makes it harder to communicate. Dummy, a deception device that takes advantage of Maneuverability particle interference. Thanks to this interference, warfare in the Universal Century era relies heavily on visual sensors, which can be tricked by inflatable decoys. These decoy balloons are designed to mimic mobile suits, asteroids, and even warships. More sophisticated varieties are equipped with small maneuvering verniers, allowing them to move in a realistic manner and register on infrared sensors. So here's another example of the effect Maneuverability particles have, and that kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier about a giant robot aiming down the sights of a gun. That's just further, I guess, visual aid it's able to obtain as a mobile suit within all the Maneuverability particles. All right, generator, a device which converts the energy of a mobile suit's thermonuclear reactor to electrical power. Electricity can be obtained directly from the reactor core via magnetohydrodynamics, and the heat emitted by the reactor can also be converted to electrical power using turbines. In this fashion, the reactor provides the mobile suit with an abundant supply of electricity. That sounds very practical. Hardpoint. Now, I learned of this word just from the Robot Spirits action figures where they talk about them having hardpoints on them. But an attachment point for weapon shields, spare ammunition, or optional mission-specific equipment. Hardpoints can also be used to store carried weapons when a mobile suit needs its manipulators free for other purposes, or when a transformable mobile suit changes into its mobile armor form. I like that, the hardpoint thing. It's kind of a toyetic thing, having points to attach weapons on, but I'm glad that in universe it's also explained the same way too, because you would think, okay, how is this mobile suit going to have all of its weapons attached? So manipulator, the technical term for a mobile suit's arm and hand. The mobile suit was originally conceived of as a powered spacesuit to extend the human operator's own capabilities, and the term manipulator is inherited from the artificial arms used in powered suits. These devices give the mobile suit unparalleled versatility, and their built-in touch sensors provide immediate feedback for precise operation. In some cases, weapons and shields are also integrated into these manipulators, but their primary functions are carrying equipment and manipulating objects. Sealant launcher. This device sprays a sticky sealant, also known as bird lime, similar to the wall film used to mend breaches in warship hulls. This substance can be used to seal ruptures in spacecraft and space colony exteriors. By the time of the Grips conflict, most mobile suits have sealant launchers built into the fingers of their manipulators, as well as utility devices like signal flares, dummy dispensers, and fire extinguishers. And we've seen them used even against human people. Aren't humans people anyway? Just to keep them in place so they don't move around or anything. But I like that explanation's there, because it's almost, that doesn't need to be like an active sort of functionality, but it's there because in the event a situation like that would be needed, especially when this is revolved around space, being in the vacuum of space and everything. All right, maneuverability is key here when it comes to the mobile suits. There's a lot of people that are fans of Gundam. When they're into the technology, it's like, how does someone actually pilot a mobile suit? And there's going to be a lot of systems in place, part of it being this automated or algorithmic-based technology. We've been talking about that lately with like the AI stuff, but let's see how they have that integrated into some of the mobile suit technology. AMBAC, Active Mass Balance Auto Control, is a fundamental technology that allows for thrusterless maneuvering in the zero-G environment of space by mobile suits by means of precise movement control of their limbs in the Gundam universe, as said in the Gundam Century and Gundam Officials. The AMBAC technology, in conjunction with the fictional fusion reactor developed by the character Dr. Y.T. Manovsky, made mobile suits feasible. AMBAC works by leveraging Isaac Newton's third law of motion. When there's an action, there's an equal and opposite reaction with regard to inertia to affect changes in direction. For example, if we place a person in a microgravity environment where friction is negligible and ask him to place his left arm to his chest and swing it out to the side, the resulting inertia of the arm movement would result in the rest of his body turning the other direction in order to conserve angular momentum. Then when the motion of the arm stopped, the rotation of the body would also stop. The AMBAC system coordinates movements and micro-movements, precisely allowing a continuous balance and stability without expending reaction mass. For the most part, AMBAC is invisible to the naked eye as the shifts are slight. However, the system can be used to dodge incoming projectiles or small objects, as the arms and legs of a mobile suit account for a significant portion of its total mass. The AMBAC system also allows the center of mass to shift outside of the body. AMBAC is, by its nature, limited to reorienting the unit about its center of mass and is not a substitute for propulsion. It is often used in conjunction with the propulsion system to quickly turn the unit and shorten aim speed, as well as directing the main thrusters. The system is similar in principle to the momentum wheel system used in present-day satellites. Interesting, though obviously more complex. Mobile suits performing AMBAC motions would presumably move similar to present-day astronauts performing extravehicular activity, both typically having roughly similar body structure. Their use of that mass to control their rotation would presumably be similar, even if calculated by different means. While I'm sure there's more technical detail you could get into within the AMBAC system and its thrusters, etc., this is a great explanation for how mobile suits are moving around. So wing binders and tail stabilizer are technological instruments that provide extra control for the AMBAC systems. The idea is simple. If 4 limbs can maneuver the unit better than none, why not equip them with 5 or more? The wing binders concept was first utilized on the Hyakushiki as part of its transformation system. They were originally supposed to help the mobile suit move efficiently, even while it is in mobile armor form. When the Hyakushiki's transformation system fails, the mobile suit was retooled into a non-transformable unit, and the wing binders were kept as they can serve as additional AMBAC limbs. The mobile suit was retooled into a non-transformable unit, and the wing binders were kept as they can serve as additional AMBAC limbs. As a result, the unit performed well against more conventional mobile suits and showed superiority in maneuverability. Anaheim Electronics had since then installed wing binders on the back of most of the mobile suits of the same series under Project Zeta. Now, a cousin to the wing binder is the tail stabilizer. Stabilator. So I said stabilizer earlier, but it's stabilator. An elongated binder that is also mounted on the mobile suit's back and can serve to increase the unit's AMBAC capabilities. Some variants of this tail stabilator are equipped with built-in vernier thrusters and can thus further improve a mobile suit's maneuverability. Besides being mounted on transformable mobile suit, it is also used by non-transforming suits such as the O. The tail stabilator continues to be used on MS developed after UC0087. An example is the Riga Z. Balancer, a standard piece of mobile suit technology. The balancer is sometimes Called balance controller or auto balancer by different authors, is the device responsible for keeping a mobile suit upright. The device automatically adjusts to the terrain the mobile suit is walking along in. It is the device that enables the machine the ability to walk like a human being. The balancers are placed all across the body of the mobile suit's frame, with primary systems being located in the limbs. So here we go. Another part of the technology that has automation built into it. And what's interesting about this is so that it moves like a human depending on the battlefield that it's on. Apogee motor vernier thrusters. In addition to their main rocket engines, mobile suits and other spacecraft are also equipped with secondary rockets called vernier thrusters, derived from the Apogee kick motors used to position artificial satellites into geosynchronous orbit around Earth. These devices, distributed across the machine's outer surface, are used for changing direction and performing fine movements or attitude control. I think they mean altitude control, unless there's a bit of attitude to have to control in technical jargon. While early mobile suits used solid fuel motors for maneuvering, later models often use liquid fuel rockets for better performance. All right, propellant tank. Propellant is the reaction mass used in the rocket engines of mobile suits and other spacecraft. When this propellant is discharged through the rocket nozzles, it creates a counterforce in the opposite direction, generating thrust. The amount of thrust depends on the exhaust velocity and the rate at which propellant mass is consumed. And since the former factor is subject to strict technological constraints, mobile suits must carry large quantities of propellant to sustain them throughout extended battles. Due to internal space limitations, some mobile suits carry additional propellant in external propellant tanks. An external tank is used for propellant storage. This extra propellant greatly extends a mobile suit's operating range and enables it to stay in combat longer. When the propellant is consumed, the tank can be discarded to reduce the mobile suit's weight. These tanks use a two-layered construction, with one layer containing propellant and the other holding extra coolant. So it's very interesting when it comes to the use of the propellant tank, because we'll see some mobile suit designs that are pretty awesome, and they have these like extra propellant tanks sticking out. And so you wonder how much of that is extra, or how much of that is required due to maybe the shape or the construction of the mobile suit where it can't have that extra propellant. All right, magnet coating. I've heard this a lot. Magnet coating is a special process developed by the Earth Federation in 0079 for their mobile suits. The need for this process came as the higher-ups realized that despite the RX-78-2 Gundam's amazingly continued performance, there was one major flaw to it: its pilot, Amuro Ray, whose new type abilities were overwhelming the unit. To fix this, magnet coating process was created. That I didn't know. The process has the joints of a suit coated with a special material that, when energized, repels the joints to the point where there is zero friction. By doing this, a mobile suit's reaction time is increased by 20-30%. The process was first tested on the RX-78-3 G3 Gundam, then applied to the original RX-78-2 Gundam, later being added to all future mobile suits. Zeon would try this with their Act Zaku, but the suit wouldn't see the light of day until the Grips conflict. In the original show, the magnet coating process has no visible indication. However, in March 2012, the life-size Gundam statue at Gundam Front Tokyo was upgraded with sealed joint parts to represent having received magnet coating. And sealed joints were later used to indicate the magnet coating upgrade in several Gunpla model kits, such as Master Grade RX-78-2, Gundam 3.0. Something I wasn't familiar with, that there was maybe some sort of a visual indicator that then they had on later model kits. That's pretty interesting. I'm going to have to look more into that, but I like this idea that it was because of Amuro Ray's performance using it that they realized that they need magnet coating. That's pretty interesting. Stern Booster, a detachable booster that can be installed on mobile suits and mobile armors. These devices house both propellant tanks and powerful rocket thrusters, enabling the mobile armor to accelerate rapidly on its way to the battlefield. Once their propellant is exhausted, the stern thruster units are detached and discarded as dead weight. Okay, ejection pod. So most of the early mobile suits used during the One-Year War lacked emergency escape mechanisms. The core block system used in the Earth Federation's RX series, meanwhile, was too expensive for mass production. After the war, when the linear floating seat and 360-degree panoramic screen become standard equipment, this problem is addressed by turning the entire cockpit assembly into a spherical escape pod, which could be ejected in emergencies. And we see that often, especially in Char's counterattack. This ejection pod design proves effective and inexpensive and soon becomes a standard feature. However, since these devices are unable to survive the explosion of a mobile suit's main reactor, research continues into the core block system and other escape mechanisms. Which that's pretty interesting, because if you think of some later UC, Victory goes back to having a core fighter as part of its part of the mobile suit, even like the crossbone stuff. So Yeah, we are seeing that there are fighters used later on. Whether they call that the core block system or not, I don't know. Okay, so Arm Raker, a new type of controller or a new type of control lever used in the mobile suits of the UC0090 era. When the pilot grasps the spherical controller, he can use his fingers to operate the individual control switches while moving the sphere itself to maneuver the mobile suit. It is said that this type of control lever was actually much more simplistic to use over the switches and computers used by past mobile suits. Okay, so UC90. So by the time we get into Char's Counterattack, Unicorn, a lot of those newer mobile suits are equipped with an arm raker. Okay. So linear seat mobile suit pilots have to endure much higher acceleration forces than aircraft pilots caused by maneuvering and engaging in close combat in a mobile suit. During the 1-year war, there were many cases of pilots being wounded in the cockpit while their mobile suits remained relatively intact. The linear seat technology was invented to address the issue. The system consists of a pilot seat suspended on a linear rail floating in the cockpit block. The linear rail contains actuators, which are controlled by a computer to mitigate the G-force from acceleration and impact. Furthermore, if the pilot wears a compatible normal suit, the suit itself can be affixed to the seat with no need for seat belts. Prototypes for the linear seat were installed in the Alex and the Stamen, so that's the GP03. The first mass production mobile suit that adopted the linear seat was the Hyzak. Some older mobile suits, such as the GM Sniper Custom, were also refitted with linear seats by the time of the Grips War. So one of the earliest types of MS optical cameras happens to be the mono-eye systems, which makes sense since the Zaku or Xeon's mobile suits generally are mono-eye, and they were kind of the first in the war. They are distinctive main sensors used by the mobile suits of the Principality of Xeon, which resembles the eye of a giant Cyclops. In addition to an optical camera, this compound device also incorporates laser and infrared sensors for precision targeting. The mono-eye is mounted on rails. It can slide back and forth to cover a wide field of view. The visual data provided by the mono-eye is supplemented by 10 or more secondary cameras, which are distributed around the exterior of the mobile suit. It is considered the trademark of the Xeonix famous Zaku 2. So infrared sensors, thanks to the effects of Minovsky particle interference, radar sensors are virtually useless in the battlefields of the universal century, and optical cameras are the primary means of detecting and targeting enemy vessels. These are supplemented by infrared and laser sensors for precision targeting. Infrared sensors can be used for long-range enemy detection. Although Minovsky particle interference does have some sort of effect at infrared wavelengths, enemy warships and mobile armor still register as heat sources. On Earth, other options for detecting enemies include sonar and magnetic anomaly detectors. The later devices used in the modern era for locating submarines sense the magnetic distortions caused by metallic objects. All right, the panoramic screen, a new type of cockpit display, typically used in conjunction with a linear floating seat. The multiple panels of the panoramic screen make up a single 360 degrees display which covers the entire inner surface of the spherical cockpit. The image displayed on this screen is a computer simulation constructed from the cameras distributed around the mobile suit's exterior. The viewpoint is that of the mobile suit's head, and the image is carefully edited to remove the mobile suit itself. This system is introduced during the 1-year war and experimentally employed in the Alex, but it doesn't enter mass production until UC0085. Very interesting. Another interesting thing about this is the fact that it's a computer simulation constructed image that the pilot is seeing. So again, that's algorithmic based. It's using all these sensors all around it to be able to construct an image that the pilot would be seeing. I think that's very interesting. And I don't know how often they have, has someone attempted at tinkering with someone's screen, the sensors, the computer simulation to maybe show incorrect things, misinformation. Wasn't there a show or episode or whatever where they were even broadcasting what was computer generated incorrect information? So I think that's a really cool use of technology of that time in the future where it's computer simulating algorithmic based imaging that could be messed with. Okay, movable frame. The movable frame was a new concept in mobile suit construction introduced after the 1-year war. It was first tested on the RX-178 Gundam Mark II. Essentially, it was an inner frame that incorporated all the mobile suit's vital mechanisms, including the cockpit, the generator, and the actuators and control systems required for movement. This frame was completely separate from the sensors, thrusters, armor, weapons, and propellant tanks. This design allowed for better energy efficiency, easier repair, maintenance, and modification of mobile suits, as well as increased maneuverability and fluidity of movements. During the one-year war, Xeon and Federation mobile suits utilized monocoque and semi-monocoque construction, respectively, with machinery placed inside an armored outer shell akin to an exoskeleton. However, with the introduction of the beam rifle that makes conventional armor almost useless, designers began reducing their mobile suits' armor to improve their maneuverability and agility, eventually leading to the movable frame. Due to the various advantages of the movable frame, it soon became the standard mobile suit construction method during the Group's War, and the obsolete monocoque and semi-monocoque construction was eventually phased out. And this is something I've picked up from the video games, but there's beam-resistant coating, anti-beam coating mantle. And when it comes to defensive systems, there's this heat-proof field, a system installed in the RX-78-2 Gundam which pumps out air to counter the friction heat of atmospheric entry. The mobile suit's internal cooling systems must also be engaged to deal with the heat that penetrates the airfield. Very interesting. All right, I-field generator. When Minovsky particles are released into the air or into open space, the positive and negative particles spontaneously align themselves into a three-dimensional cubic lattice due to the repulsive and electrostatic forces between the Minovsky particles. This lattice functions as a kind of force field, which is referred to as an I-field. This field has difficulty permeating conductive materials like water, or like metal, water, and plasma, and it exerts a repulsive force against megaparticles. An I-field is used to deflect enemy megaparticle beams due to its high power requirements. The I-field generator originally could only be installed in large mobile weapons. When the generator is activated, the I-field forms an invisible barrier around the mobile weapon, protecting it from incoming beam attacks. However, this barrier has no effect against solid objects like missiles and projectiles, and beam weapons can still be used at point-blank range within the barrier's boundary. Another weakness is that the I-field generator has an operating limit. An I-field generator consumes a large amount of energy and overheats in around 15 to 20 minutes, while on Earth, heat can be transferred to water or air. Space is a vacuum, which means the heat must be given off through radiation, an extremely slow process. However, as the years went on, development into the I-field generator would lead to interesting creations. The first of these are the fin funnel barrier used by the RX-93 New Gundam and its derivatives. The fin funnel barrier is a special force field that is powerful enough to not only stop beam weaponry, but also physical weaponry, and is even able to trap units within it. Another is the X3 I-field, a special miniaturized I-field generator built into the hands of the Crossbone Gundam X3. Yeah, and then later you see suits get the beam shield, where it's a shield made out of beam. It's like taking the technology that they've learned already and then able to stabilize a shield in a specific form. And lastly, even though there's a lot of other technology, I just wanted to bring up the main pieces. The last one being the Psychomu. Was a type of man-machine interface that utilized the psycho waves emitted by new types. Since it used Minovsky particles as its medium, it was unaffected by Minovsky particle interference. So this is where we'd see sometimes a mobile suit might have its bits or whatever that fly out on a wire, and that's so it can transmit through the Minovsky particles. But we have new types that are able to interface with the Psychomu system built in the mobile suit to allow them to use bits and funnels that don't require wires. But there's also other things the Psychomu system allows a user, particularly a new type, to do, and that's just better maneuverability within the mobile suit itself. Well, there you have it, an exclusive read of the Gundam Wiki. Really, I just wanted to look at some of the cool tech involved with mobile suits, because I think a lot of times we will think or want to discuss about how does someone actually pilot the mobile suit. It doesn't make sense. But while there are some consistent controls, there's also neat technology. Some of this technology runs itself, just like some of the technology we're seeing nowadays and what's being implemented across different disciplines. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed that. If you have any other cool facts about technology used in mobile suits, please post them below. But otherwise, catch you in the next one.